Hey, my name is Sruti. I'm an author and spiritual teacher, and I write and talk about my experience of spiritual awakening and chronic pain. In 2018, I had an allergic reaction to an ear piercing that radically altered my appearance and my life. The condition, which is rare, is called erythromelalgia and feels like you have a hot frying pan stuck to your ear and face. I was also on prednisone for 6 years, which radically altered my appearance for the duration of the illness. Most doctors didn't think I would recover, but that is why I'm sharing what I have to share, because it helped me get through it, and it can help you get through your problems too. Hope you enjoy. So I'm going to be showing you in this video me doing my weekly medical infusion from start to finish. So disclaimer, this is absolutely not a how-to video. This is not a tutorial. This in no way is me giving any kind of medical advice to anyone, because I am not a medical professional. So do not take this video to be any kind of training, advice, information. This is just me putting the camera on and allowing you to watch while I do something that I've been trained to do every week. And there is absolutely no blood, guts, or gore in this video. It's amazing. The only thing that if you're squeamish about is you will see me put teeny tiny little needles into my arm. That is it. Everything else is absolutely not frightening. And even the needles themselves, they're so small and they're so far away from the camera, you're not even really going to see it. So that is my warning. That is my disclaimer. However, I do think it's really important to show something like this on camera because, as I've mentioned many times before, video and photography is a medium where you're immediately objectified, especially if you're female. And in order to break the illusion that you're looking at some kind of flat, two-dimensional doll, you do have to show that you have humanity like everyone else. So this is one of the ways to do that. It is also a way of breaking some of the stigma around medical procedures. We have this pretty bad view of illness or disability in society, viewing it as like this weakness or this kind of like gross thing we should hide away from each other. I do not see it that way. I think that in order to know the fullness of a person, you should be able to know what kind of health problems they have, what they've been dealing with, what they do every single week. So this is that video. And I do think, if anything, it should be interesting just to have this fly-on-the-wall view into someone who is trained by nurses to do this procedure on themselves, something I do every single week. I'm going to be kind of miming in the background while I do a voiceover. And like I said, it's sort of a fun way of allowing you to maybe view health problems or medical procedures in a kind of a different way. And if you happen to be someone who is feeling self-conscious about your medical procedures, I hope that it kind of gives you a different take on this kind of thing. I tried to kind of dress up a bit and make it fun. I don't normally do infusions wearing a bunch of jewelry and makeup, but for the camera, I thought, hey, why not make this kind of sparkly and fun? Because actually, to tell you the truth, this is not something, like over time, this has become something that is almost like a ritual for me. So while it's not exactly fun, it's not unfun either. So anyway, enjoy. Okay, so here we are starting the infusion. As you can see, I am wearing gloves on only my fingers and starting by taking some Tylenol. And the Tylenol makes sure I don't get headaches from absorbing the medication. So the medication is a clear liquid. It, rather than going directly into my veins, goes into the subcutaneous layer of my skin. Usually I do this on my legs or thigh or back, but that's kind of awkward to show on camera. So I was specifically trained to do this on the backs of my arms, which does have a subcutaneous layer that is good for putting medication in. So right now I'm just cleaning it with some alcohol pads, making sure it is sterile. And then we're going to get going putting the needles in my arm. So in order to infuse, like I said, rather than going directly into the vein, I used to have a nurse come to the house, put an IV in. I'd have the whole pole in the bag and all that, and it would drip for 3 hours. I really wanted to be able to just do this on my own time and do it myself. So it's absorbed differently. It goes, kind of diffuses through 4 different needles underneath my skin, kind of like if you were just going to get an injection. I do all my own injections now. There's just so many medications I take that it's easier for me to do this myself. So right now I'm using a Band-Aid that is latex free and good for sensitive skin. And this is going to attach the port to my arm. It's just where all of the liquid is concentrated from the needles. It's not actually a port into my body like that word is usually used medically. So now that it's attached, it's easier for me to put on the needles. The needles are attached to this little bit of tubing that the medication goes through, and that little wing kind of protects the needle and lays flat on your arm when the needle goes in. There is the needle with the little cap on there. You can take off the cap, and you will see the teeny tiny little needle there that is going into my arm, and where the medication flows through to diffuse into my system. This is another sensitive skin bandage that is going to attach the needle onto my arm. The needle doesn't just stay in there. You have to attach it and cover it. So I am awkwardly going to show that just so you can see the process of putting the needle on there. But then I'm going to do it a little bit easier and differently in a minute. So this is going to be a little awkward. The needle is now in my arm. As you can see, you didn't really see anything. Sort of awkward to get the bandage on there by myself. I did remember kind of halfway through this how my nurse trained me to put it on there easier. But just for the purposes of showing you the whole process, I did it this way the first time, even though it's just super awkward and it's taking me a minute to actually get the backing off so I can stick it down on my arm. Yay! Now, that was the first needle. The other 3 needles are going to be a little easier. Here we are, needle number 2. Same process. And I used to use lidocaine to numb the areas where I was going to put the needle. You can put it wherever. I sterilized my whole arm. It's me bumping the camera and getting excited about adhesive bandages. And here we are. So anyway, I used to use lidocaine to numb the areas where I was putting the needles. But over time, to be honest, I can hardly even feel the needles go in. So I don't care. The only rule for this, you can see this is the easier way of doing this, is sticking it onto the bandage first. And then just putting the whole thing on there, needle and everything. Especially if you're not using lidocaine, just randomly stick it in. So the only rule is you want the width of 2 fingers in between each needle so that the liquid isn't too concentrated in one area, but they can be fairly close together. Sometimes the bandages do overlap, which needle number 3, which you will see at the end is a little difficult to get off. You can't just rip them out of your arm. Sometimes they bleed, sometimes the liquid comes out. Like I said, you're not going to be seeing any of that today. It went so smoothly. But you do have to take each needle out at a time and bandage it immediately. So sometimes everything can get kind of stuck together and awkward. But right now we're still in the process of putting the needles in. The amount of needles is how fast the infusion will go. So this infusion takes like an hour and a half. I used to do more liquid. My dose decreased as I came down on prednisone. And I would want it to go faster, so I would do like 5 needles, but especially when you're doing it like in your arm and there's not a ton of space, as you can see, 5 needles is kind of hard. So I went with the slower infusion with 4 needles, less irritation to my skin, less poking, last needle here. And ultimately, when the dose was decreased, it didn't really matter that it was a longer infusion time because it's only an hour and a half each week. It used to be like 3 or 4 hours at a time, like I said, when the nurses used to have to come to my house and put the IV in my arm. I used to have to sit there and they check on me and blah, blah, blah. But so much easier to do this myself. So last needle here, very exciting. Like, as you can see, kind of hard to figure out where to stick it, but just go right there. It's good. And then this next step is voluntary, but the needles sometimes have a tendency to like come out because the bandages don't hold them on all that tightly. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. This is the little connector piece that connects the needles to the actual syringe that I'm going to put the medicine in. So the only thing with this is just making sure that you are connecting the right ends to the right connectors, which isn't that hard because if you get it wrong, they will not go together. So here's the super interesting process of taking off the caps that keep them sterile and connecting them to each other. Kind of hard to take them off when it's positioned on your arm like that. That little bit of red on my hand is not blood. That is lipstick. My super bright, super fun infusion lipstick that makes this whole video just so glamorous. So, yeah, this next step, I'm looking around for the bandage, knocking things over. This is voluntary. This keeps the needles in my arm and I don't have to worry about them popping out. And if they were to pop out, I mean, you just like pop them back in. But if you don't notice, the liquid will continue to drip out and you will have a very wet arm or leg or wherever you're infusing will suddenly just become soaked with medication, which is fine. It's not going to hurt you. It's just a little sticky. So the medication is clear. It is from humans. It's from blood donations, and it does help your immune system. This is called IVIG. The medication is called Gamunex-C, and it helps people whose part of their immune system that fights infections is compromised. So all through COVID, I was kind of stuck in my house because I have a compromised immune system, just doing these infusions, making sure I didn't come in contact with anyone who had COVID. Knock on wood, I have never had COVID, and that is because everyone was so careful around me during the virus. So here I am taking off the cap to the medication that's in these bottles. Like I said, it's clear. And you have to get the medication from the bottle to the syringe so it can be pumped into your arm. And you need to make sure everything's sterile. So there's lots of alcohol pads, wiping off the caps before you put in the, what are they called? Mini spikes. Yeah, they're called mini spikes. So all these supplies have to be ordered through the pharmacy. There's no way you could even possibly do this, even if you watched this video and wanted to try, because you'd have to get the medication and all the supplies by prescription from your doctor. So this is just fun. Like I said, just a fun way of watching me do this. So this is the syringe. One bottle of medicine will fill the entire syringe. You screw the syringe onto the mini spike, which allows you to pull the medication with pressure from the bottle into the syringe. Super interesting watching me do this. It takes a little while. I kind of have to go slow. And if you go too fast, you get a lot of bubbles in the top, which we'll see in a minute because I'll fix it. But this one went pretty well. Not a lot of bubbles, just a slow process of drawing that clear liquid into the syringe until it is totally full and the bottle is totally empty. Bit of an art here to keep it kind of bubble free. It's not the end of the world if there's bubbles in your syringe. I mean, they'll go into the IV and ultimately into your body, but it's just air. It's just annoying. It just kind of wastes your time. So we are now attaching the syringe to the needles with the connector that's going into my arm. And here is the super sterile cap that we're taking off and screwing the tubing onto the syringe. Now, there's another step to get the medication from the syringe into my arm. You do not push it. It's impossible to push. You use this pump that costs more than $300, but looks like a kid's toy. Ta-da! Sounds like a kid's toy too. So you just like wind it. It doesn't even have batteries. It's all just from winding it. Put the syringe in and switch the switch to on. It is now on. Takes a second to click into place. And ta-da! It is now pumping the medication into my arm, which you can feel when it starts to go in. It stings a little bit. Zip it back up in its super cool case. Put it on. Super fashionable. Oh, look at this Glam infusion. Isn't it wonderful? So I am not going to bore you. I'm telling myself we are not done yet with this part because there are 3 more bottles that I have to put into the second syringe. These are teeny tiny little bottles compared to the other one. This is just because my dose is a specific amount each week. So there are 3 teeny bottles that will fill the syringe 3/5 of the way. And after the first syringe has been emptied, I will switch out the syringes and do the second syringe that has less medication in it. And that will be my total dose. So we are now watching me take off the annoying caps to all the little bottles. I'm not going to lie, this is the most annoying part of the entire thing because you have to just get this certain amount of medication out of the little bottles. So like I said, now that I'm down on prednisone, my dose has been lowered a bit, but my immune system is still compromised from the other medications that I'm on that are immune modulating medications that keep my face and my interstitial cystitis under control, and I'm in far less pain because of them. So this medication here, IVIG, is sort of a necessary counterbalance to the fact that my immune system is so compromised. All kinds of warnings on these medications about getting infections and then having them become life-threatening because your immune system is so compromised. So all my doctors take this pretty seriously. I'm pretty much able to function because of them, and I'm pretty much able to not get life-threatening infections because of this particular infusion. So as much work and material and time as this is something that I do not go without. So when I travel, The most annoying part is having to take this medication with me. It must be refrigerated at all times. So think about it. If you're carrying, I mean, there were 4 bottles that are pretty heavy altogether just for 1 week. If you're going somewhere for a month, like when I visit my dad on the East Coast, I have to take 4 weeks of supplies and meds and my pump. And that's before I've packed like clothes or anything that's sort of necessary. So I end up carrying suitcases full of ice and medication that are super heavy before I've even packed anything to wear. So anyway, I do also have the freedom with this particular medication to have it shipped where I am on ice, which is super great. And I don't need a nurse to do it. So I can go places, have the medication shipped there. I've had it shipped to other parts of the country. I've had it shipped to hotels. I had it shipped to hotels when I had to stay in a hotel after we almost lost our house in the Marshall Fire. And I was in a hotel for a month. I'll make another video on the Marshall Fire at some point. But yeah, it's a lot more freedom than having to pick up the medication at a doctor's office, or having to go there for an infusion, or having to be at your house at a certain time every week for 3 or 4 hours to have a nurse come and put this into your veins. So, like I said, as time consuming and as much of a process as this is sort of the easiest way to do this. So right now I'm getting rid of bubbles, by the way. This is what my nurse taught me. If there's bubbles at the top, you open up an alcohol pad and squeeze it into the alcohol pad so that it is sterile and does not spill everywhere. And now you have a bubble-free syringe, and I am frantically looking around now for the silly little blue cap that goes on top of the syringe while it waits for the first syringe to be empty. So in 1 second, I am going to find it and put it on, and then I am not going to bore you watching the syringe empty. I'm going to cut the video and come back when I'm ready to switch out the syringes. So here we are. Here is the beautiful blue cap. Here is the second syringe. Okay, so we are back. As you can see, the syringe is now empty, and we are ready to switch it out and go to syringe number 2. Turn it off, wind the little kid's toy pump. Keep winding and don't drop the camera. But if you should drop the camera, like I did, fix the camera and then regain composure. Regain composure. Regain composure, and continue winding the pump. Yes. So you wind it until it releases the syringe. Take out the syringe. Untwist the connector to the needles. Discard the syringe and uncap the sterile second syringe. Screw the needles onto the syringe and put the syringe back into the kid's toy pump. Yay! This will take less time because there is less liquid in it in this particular part of my dose. Turn the pump back on. Put the pump back in its cool little fashionable case that I'm wearing. And I will not bore you watching this little lever push the pump for 45 minutes. But I will see you on the flip side when it is empty. Magic. So now the infusion is done. Turn off the pump. Wind the kid's toy pump so it releases the syringe. Just like last time. Take out the syringe. And take off the fashionable pump case so that you can put the pump back into its case for next time. Zip it up. And now we move on to the last step, which is taking out the needles. And like I said, this can be a little awkward, just because it's in my arm and, you only have one hand to do this. You need Band-Aids because you take out needles one at a time, bandage them, get the Band-Aids ready, all the Band-Aids before you begin. It's just easier when you're rushing to get the Band-Aids on. So here we are. This is Band-Aid number 3. Exciting. Band-Aid number 4. And then we move to the awkward process of taking out the needles. So take off the bandage. That's the first thing. Save that until next week because it's not dirty in any way. And we see the needles. Just pick one that's easiest to get off. Get the Band-Aid totally ready out of its wrapper. Totally ready to put on. Like I said, no blood or guts in this video. This went as smoothly as it could. Sometimes that adhesive can be a little tricky to pull off, especially when you're wearing little gloves on your fingers. Basically just pull the needles out. That's just some creasing from where it was pressed into my arm. And stick that Band-Aid on there. Try to be careful of the needle because it can poke you. You don't want that. So you, as best you can, close the little wings on each side of the needle so it's unable to poke you multiple times. And continue on, and they're all kind of stuck together there. So you kind of do the best you can just to do them one at a time, close them up, and then when they're all fully out of your arm, just kind of take off the parts where they're still sticky. The bandage got kind of stuck to the other bandage, but still pretty smooth. Stick that Band-Aid on there. And this Band-Aid was real awkward. That's okay. The Band-Aids don't even need to stay on all that long. It's not like it's going into your vein. This is just, pretty short, pretty thin, subcutaneous needles. And needle number 3, third Band-Aid. This one got a little bit easier. Sometimes there's, like your skin kind of puffs out where the liquid went in, and that's just temporary. I was surprised that this didn't really happen this time on my arm, but sometimes your arm can get a little baggy or wherever you're doing the infusion. It's just till it like seeps into your body evenly and absorbs. So that one went a little smoother. Last needle, last Band-Aid. So yeah, this is a weekly thing I do on Sundays on my own time. I can do any time of day. Takes an hour and a half at my own pace. Doesn't even hurt anymore. It's just a process. And there is the last Band-Aid. And now the only thing left to do is just gently remove anywhere this was still attached to me. Make sure the needles are all enclosed. Wrap it up. And these go into a sterile container that is safely disposed of as medical waste. You mail it back to a pharmacy that takes care of medical waste. The Band-Aids are kind of awkward, but they're fine. And that, my friends, is the end. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about me, you can check out my website, which is www.meet-shruti.com, linked below. Also, since I am a vastly better writer than I am speaker, I'd highly recommend checking out my book, The Hidden Value of Not Knowing. also linked below on Amazon. And of course, I'm obligated to say you should like, subscribe, comment. See you next time.